The classroom is silent, except for the sound of chalk scraping against a blackboard. It's 1954, and 12-year-old Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. sits in the back row of his 7th grade English class at Central High School in Louisville, Kentucky. His desk is scarred with initials carved by students long forgotten. His eyes drift toward the window, watching birds dance across the pale autumn sky. He's daydreaming again, always daydreaming. Mrs. Alina Hodges stands at the front of the room, her severe face framed by wire-rimmed glasses that catch the fluorescent light. She's teaching grammar, subjects and predicates, the architecture of proper sentences, but Cassius isn't listening. He never does, not in her class. His mind is somewhere else entirely, floating like those birds, imagining himself as something more than a skinny black kid from the West End who can barely read at grade level. Mr. Clay, her voice cuts through the classroom like a knife through warm butter, sharp, cold, deliberate. Cassius's head snaps forward, 28 pairs of eyes turn toward him, some kids smirk, others look down at their desks, grateful it's not them. Yes, ma'am, his voice cracks slightly. He's at that awkward age where his body doesn't quite match his confidence yet. Stand up. He rises slowly, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. He's already tall for his age, but he feels small right now, diminished. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry wasps. I asked you a question 3 times. 3 times, Mr. Clay. Were you listening? No, ma'am, I was. You were staring out the window, again. She walks toward him slowly, her heels clicking against the floor with the rhythm of a ticking clock. Tell me something, Cassius. What exactly do you think you're going to accomplish in this life if you can't even pay attention in English class? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Several students giggle. Cassius feels heat rising in his cheeks. I don't know, ma'am. Mrs. Hodges stops directly in front of his desk. She's shorter than him now, but somehow she still looms over him. You don't know, of course you don't know, because you don't think, do you? You just drift. She says the word like it's something dirty. You know what I see when I look at you, Cassius? I see a boy who can barely string together a coherent sentence. A boy who reads at a 5th grade level. A boy who will be lucky to graduate from high school, let alone amount to anything meaningful. The classroom is absolutely silent now. Even the clock seems to have stopped ticking. Cassius's hands ball into fists at his sides, but he doesn't speak. His mother raised him to respect his elders, especially teachers, even when they're wrong, even when their words feel like punches. Sit down, Mrs. Hodges says, turning away from him dismissively, and try to pay attention, though I suspect that's asking too much. Cassius sits. The rest of the class passes in a blur of shame and simmering anger. When the bell rings, he gathers his books and walks out without making eye contact with anyone. But what Mrs. Alina Hodges doesn't know, what she cannot know, is that just 3 months ago, Cassius's bicycle was stolen. What she doesn't know is that when he reported it to a police officer at the Columbia gym, that officer, Joe Martin, told him, well, you better learn how to fight before you start fighting whoever stole it. What she doesn't know is that Cassius has been going to that gym every single day after school, learning to move his feet, learning to throw combinations, discovering that his hands are faster than anyone else's. What she doesn't know is that inside this boy who will never amount to anything is a fire that cannot be extinguished by words. What she doesn't know is that she's just lit a fuse. 8 years pass like water through fingers. It's February 1964, and the world has changed. The Beatles have just arrived in America. President Johnson is escalating involvement in Vietnam. The Civil Rights Act is months away from passage. And in Miami Beach, Florida, a 22-year-old fighter named Cassius Clay is preparing to face Sonny Liston for the heavyweight championship of the world. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gives him a chance. Sonny Liston is a monster, an ex-convict with fists like sledgehammers and a stare that could freeze blood. He destroyed Floyd Patterson twice, knocking him out in the first round both times. The mob fears him, the media fears him, even other fighters fear him. He's unbeatable, inevitable, a force of nature wrapped in human skin. But Cassius doesn't fear him. Cassius has spent 8 years transforming himself from that daydreaming kid in the back row into something else entirely. He's won a gold medal at the 1960 Olympics in Rome. He's won 19 professional fights. He's developed a style that nobody has ever seen before, dancing, floating, striking like lightning, and disappearing like mist. He's become something that shouldn't exist. A heavyweight who moves like a middleweight, thinks like a chess master, and talks like a poet prophet. The weigh-in is chaos. Cassius storms into the room screaming, "I'm ready to rumble, I'm ready to rumble." His eyes are wild. He's wearing a denim jacket with Bear Huntin embroidered on it. The media thinks he's having a breakdown. The boxing commission nearly calls off the fight. His own corner men think he's lost his mind. But it's all theater, all strategy, all part of the plan to get inside Liston's head. That night, February 25, 1964, in the Miami Beach Convention Hall, Cassius Clay does the impossible. He doesn't just beat Sonny Liston. He dismantles him. He makes him quit on his stool after the 6th round, claiming a shoulder injury. The unbeatable monster simply stops fighting. And when the referee raises Cassius's hand, the young fighter screams to the press, "I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I'm the king of the world. I'm pretty. I'm a bad man. I shook up the world." But he's not done, not even close. 3 days later, he announces that he's joined the Nation of Islam and is changing his name from Cassius Clay, a slave name, he calls it, to Muhammad Ali. The media explodes. White America is horrified. Even many black Americans are concerned. He's just become the most famous athlete in the world, and he's immediately transforming into the most controversial. The speaking requests pour in. Everyone wants the new champion. Universities, television shows, civic organizations, churches. He's bombarded with invitations. Most he declines. His time is precious. His message is focused. He's not interested in being a dancing bear for white audiences who want to see the novelty of an articulate Negro boxer. But then, in March of 1964, one invitation arrives that makes him pause. Central High School in Louisville, Kentucky, is hosting a special assembly to honor their most famous alumnus. They want Muhammad Ali, though many still insist on calling him Cassius Clay, to speak to the students, to inspire them, to show them what's possible. Ali's manager, Angelo Dundee, advises against it. "You got bigger fish to fry, champ. Network television, national magazines. Why go back to some high school in Louisville?" But Ali isn't listening. There's something in his eyes, a distant look, a memory surfacing like a body from deep water. "I'm going," he says quietly. "I'm definitely going." The gymnasium at Central High School is packed. Every student in the school is crammed onto the bleachers, more than 2,000 kids, their voices creating a roar like an ocean during a storm. Teachers line the walls, arms crossed, some smiling, some skeptical. The principal, Mr. Hendricks, stands at a microphone set up at center court, sweating through his suit despite the cool March air. Muhammad Ali sits in a folding chair on the gymnasium floor, wearing a sharp black suit with a thin tie. His face is still unmarked despite fighting Liston, not a scratch, not a bruise. He's smiling slightly, acknowledging the screaming students with small waves, but his eyes are scanning the crowd of teachers along the wall. "Searching. Students, students, please." Principal Hendricks's voice barely cuts through the noise. "Please settle down. We are incredibly honored today to welcome back one of our own." The introduction continues, but Ali isn't listening. He's still searching the faces. And then, suddenly, he stops. His eyes lock onto something, someone. There, standing against the far wall near the equipment room, is Mrs. Elena Hodges. She's 51 now, 8 years older, her hair more gray than brown. She's wearing a sensible blue dress and those same wire-rimmed glasses. Her arms are crossed tightly across her chest, and her expression is impossible to read. She's not smiling. She's not frowning. She's just watching. For just a moment, just a fraction of a second, their eyes meet across the crowded gymnasium. Ali's smile falters, then returns, wider than before. "Please welcome our heavyweight champion of the world, Cassius Clay." The gymnasium erupts. The sound is deafening. Ali stands, waves, and walks to the microphone. He waits for the noise to die down, which takes nearly 3 minutes. When it finally does, he speaks. Thank you all, but I need to make something clear right from the start. His voice is strong, clear, amplified by the microphone, but powerful enough that he might not need it. My name is not Cassius Clay anymore. Cassius Clay was a slave name. My name, the name I chose, the name that represents who I really am, is Muhammad Ali. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Some students cheer, others look confused. Several teachers shift uncomfortably. Principal Hendricks looks like he might have a heart attack, but Ali continues, undeterred. I'm going to tell you something today that I want you to remember for the rest of your lives. Are you ready? Yes, the students roar back. I said, are you ready? Yes. Ali grins. He's in his element now. This is his stage. I want to talk to you about people who tell you what you can't do, people who tell you you're not smart enough, not good enough, not talented enough, people who look at you and see only limitations, only failures, only impossibilities. He pauses. His eyes drift back to Mrs. Hodges against the wall. She hasn't moved. When I was sitting where you're sitting, right here in this school, in these classrooms, I had teachers who believed in me, teachers who saw something in me even when I couldn't see it in myself, teachers who pushed me to be better. Another pause. But I also had teachers who told me I'd never amount to anything. The gymnasium is absolutely silent now. You could hear a pin drop onto the hardwood floor, and it would sound like a gunshot. I'm not going to name names, Ali continues, and several teachers visibly relax. But there was one teacher in particular who told me I was wasting everyone's time, who told me I couldn't think, couldn't focus, couldn't achieve anything meaningful, who made me feel about this big. He holds his thumb and forefinger an inch apart, who made me believe, just for a moment, that maybe she was right. Mrs. Hodges' face has gone pale, her arms drop to her sides. But here's what I learned, and here's what I want you to learn. The people who tell you what you can't do are really telling you about their limitations, not yours. They're showing you how small their imagination is, not how small your potential is. They're revealing their blindness, not your inadequacy. He starts packing now, the microphone cord trailing behind him like a tail. Some of you in this audience right now are being told you're not college material. Some of you are being told you're not smart enough for certain careers. Some of you are being told that because of the color of your skin, or where you come from, or how much money your family has, that there are doors that will forever be closed to you. His voice rises. I'm here to tell you that those people are liars. The word echoes through the gymnasium. Several students gasp. This isn't the inspirational speech they were expecting. I'm not saying you won't face obstacles. I'm not saying life will be easy. I'm not saying you won't encounter racism, poverty, discrimination, and every other kind of barrier that society can throw at you. You will face those things, especially in 1964, especially if you're black, especially if you're poor. But here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. The biggest obstacles you'll face aren't the ones outside you. They're the ones inside you. They're the voices that echo in your head long after the people who planted them have gone silent. They're the doubts that take root when someone with authority, a teacher, a parent, a coach, tells you that you're limited. He stops packing, turns, looks directly at Mrs. Hodges. I want to do something right now, something I've been thinking about for 8 years. Principal Hendricks shifts nervously. The students lean forward. Mrs. Hodges, Ali says, his voice suddenly softer. Mrs. Elena Hodges, would you please come here? Every head in the gymnasium swivels toward the teacher against the wall. Mrs. Hodges' eyes go wide. She shakes her head slightly, mouthing no. Please, Ali says, I insist. This won't take long. The silence is excruciating. For 10 seconds, 20 seconds, nobody moves. And then slowly, Mrs. Hodges begins walking across the gymnasium floor. Her heels click against the hardwood, that same sound, that same rhythm, like a clock ticking toward an inevitable conclusion. The students part slightly, creating a corridor. When she reaches Ali, she's trembling slightly. She can't quite meet his eyes. Ali sets down the microphone and speaks to her directly. The gymnasium is so quiet that everyone can still hear him. Mrs. Hodges, do you remember me? Do you remember Cassius Clay from your English class in 1954? Her voice is barely a whisper. Yes, I remember you. Do you remember what you told me? She closes her eyes. Yes. Would you like to repeat it here, in front of all these students? Please, she whispers, please don't do this. And here, right here, is where Muhammad Ali shows the world who he really is. This would be the moment for revenge. The moment to humiliate someone who humiliated him. The moment to prove that he was right and she was wrong, to grind her dignity into the dust the way she ground his into that classroom floor 8 years ago. But that's not what happens. Instead, Ali picks up the microphone again. Mrs. Hodges told me I'd never amount to anything, that I couldn't think, that I couldn't focus, that I would be lucky to graduate high school. He pauses. And you know what? In that moment, she was right. Mrs. Hodges' eyes snap open, confused. In that moment, Ali continues, I was unfocused. I was struggling academically. I was drifting. She wasn't making it up. She saw a kid who wasn't living up to his potential, and she called it like she saw it. The problem wasn't that she was entirely wrong. The problem was that she mistook a temporary condition for a permanent identity. She saw who I was in that moment and assumed that's who I'd always be. She couldn't imagine that the unfocused kid in the back row might be unfocused because he hadn't found his purpose yet. She couldn't imagine that his mind was wandering because it was looking for something worth focusing on. He turns to face Mrs. Hodges directly. I didn't bring you up here to embarrass you. I brought you up here to thank you. The gymnasium gasps. Mrs. Hodges' hand goes to her mouth. Thank you, Mrs. Hodges, for being part of my journey. Because when you told me I'd never amount to anything, you gave me a choice. I could believe you and let your words define me, or I could prove you wrong and let your words motivate me. And I chose the second option. Every time I was tired in the gym, every time I wanted to quit, every time someone said the opponent was too tough, the challenge too great, the odds too long, I remembered that classroom. I remembered those words. And I thought, not today, not ever. Tears are streaming down Mrs. Hodges' face now. Ali reaches into his pocket and pulls out a white handkerchief, handing it to her. She takes it with shaking hands. But here's what I want all of you to understand, Ali says, addressing the students again. Mrs. Hodges isn't a villain. She's a human being who made a judgment call based on limited information. She saw one version of me and assumed it was the only version. And that's what humans do. We see snapshots and think they're the whole movie. We see chapters and think they're the whole book. We see moments and think they're the whole life. He places a hand gently on Mrs. Hodges' shoulder. The lesson here isn't that teachers are wrong or that authority figures can't be trusted. The lesson is that you are not defined by anyone else's assessment of you, not by your teachers, not by your parents, not by your friends, not by society. You are defined by who you choose to become, by the work you're willing to do, by the vision you're willing to chase, even when everyone else says it's impossible. Ali turns back to Mrs. Hodges one more time. I forgive you, he says quietly. I forgave you a long time ago, but I needed you to know that. I needed you to hear it. Mrs. Hodges can barely speak through her tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I was wrong, I was so wrong about you. You were wrong about who I was, Ali corrects gently, but you helped create who I became. So maybe, in the end, you weren't wrong at all. Maybe you were exactly what I needed. He extends his hand, she takes it. They shake, this teacher and this champion, this moment of judgment and this moment of grace, and the gymnasium erupts into applause that seems like it might never end. The assembly ends 30 minutes later, after Ali answers questions from students and poses for photographs and signs autographs until his hand cramps. But before he leaves, he finds Mrs. Hodges in the hallway outside the gymnasium. She's sitting on a bench, still wiping her eyes with his handkerchief. Keep it, he says, gesturing to the handkerchief. Consider it a souvenir. She looks up at him, this boy who became a man, this student who became a champion. Why did you really bring me up there? She asks. You could have destroyed me in front of everyone. Ali sits down next to her. For a moment, they're just two people on a bench, not a champion and a teacher, not a victor and a victim. Because I needed you to see what you couldn't see back then, he says. I needed you to understand that when you tell a child who they are, you're not describing reality, you're trying to create reality. Your words don't reveal the truth, they're trying to build it. And when you tell a kid they're limited, you're not being honest with them. You're being lazy. You're taking the easy path of judging what is instead of imagining what could be. Anne's preparing to leave. But more than that, I needed those students to see something important. I needed them to see that holding on to anger poisons you, that revenge makes you smaller, not larger, that the highest form of victory isn't crushing your enemies, it's transforming them into teachers. You taught me more than English grammar, Mrs. Hodges. You taught me that other people's limitations are not my limitations. And for that lesson, despite everything, I'm genuinely grateful. He walks away down the hallway, his footsteps echoing off the lockers and floor tiles. Mrs. Hodges watches him go, this boy who proved her wrong in the most profound way possible, not by destroying her, but by saving her. In the years that followed, Muhammad Ali would become more than a boxer. He would become a civil rights icon, a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War, a symbol of black pride and dignity, a global ambassador for peace and justice. He would be stripped of his title for refusing to fight in a war he didn't believe in. He would be vilified, celebrated, condemned, and ultimately recognized as one of the most important figures of the 20th century. But on that March day in 1964, in a gymnasium in Louisville, Kentucky, he did something that might have been even more extraordinary than his boxing achievements. He showed a generation of young people that greatness isn't just about defeating opponents in the ring. It's about defeating the limitations that others try to impose on you. It's about proving wrong those who say you can't, not through anger or revenge, but through excellence and grace. It's about understanding that the people who doubt you are often trapped by their own limited imaginations, and that your job isn't to punish them for their blindness, it's to help them see. Mrs. Alina Hodges taught English at Central High School for another 12 years before retiring in 1976. She kept Muhammad Ali's handkerchief in her desk drawer for the rest of her career. And whenever she had a student who was struggling, who seemed lost, who appeared unfocused and adrift, she would think about that day. She would remember that boy in the back row. And instead of judging what she saw, she would try, really try, to imagine what could be. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't won with fists. They're won with forgiveness, with grace, with the understanding that the person who once told you that you'd never succeed might one day need to hear that you've forgiven them for their failure to see your potential. And that is why Muhammad Ali wasn't just the greatest boxer of all time. That's why he was simply the greatest, period.